Welcome back. Time for this week's Capitol Report with Pat McGuigan of CapitolBeatOK.com. So, Pat, let's talk primary election. James Lankford wins the Republican Senate primary nomination to replace Tom Coburn without a runoff. But on the Democratic, Connie Johnson faces a runoff. Either of these results surprise you?
Lankford's margin surprised me. I think it surprised him from his comments he's made in the press, and you were there that night, so at his watch party. Very impressive, very strong, stronger than anybody expected. Basically, what it looks like is that from the last polling done, the last couple of polls done, from then on, he got every break, every undecided vote. His margin steadily increased. That of his opponent stayed about the same as the polls indicated. So the polls were right, except that the undecided all went to him. On the flip side, I'm actually kind of concerned. I'm not a Democrat, but I'm concerned for the sake of the Democratic Party that they can't settle on a nomination and a nominee for that race who's credible. The Democratic voters appear to be flirting again with nominating someone who's not credible, who's not a serious candidate, and they need to rally behind the person who would at least present an alternative to James Lankford in the fall, and that would be Connie Johnson. And Connie's worked hard in the legislature. She's been a good, dutiful senator. So those are the two things. I'd say I'm surprised by both of those, that she wasn't at least close to 50 or over it, and that Lankford was so strong on the Republican side in a very competitive environment.
All right, how about picking out a few highlights of the rest of the primaries?
You know, Tom Guild, I think I said it, I've said it a couple times, Tom Guild does it the old-fashioned way in terms of campaigning, you know, door-to-door, direct mail, with the addition of, you know, good social media, communicating with his base. It was impressive, the margin that he had over Al McCaffrey, but there will be a runoff between Tom Guild and Al McCaffrey to decide to face whoever the Republican nominee is in November. Incumbents in legislative races generally did very well and rebuffed, in the case of Republicans, rebuffed conservative challenges from their right flank, and in other cases like Mike Shelton, who conceivably could have been in trouble on the east side, winning easily the renomination of his party, the Democratic Party. So several incumbents moved up successfully, Kay Floyd, Anastasia Pittman, a few others. So incumbents really did pretty well, even in a tough political environment. Independent expenditures were actually a factor, but in races like Senate District 40, where Dr. Irwin Yin benefited, and where people like Michael Taylor maybe were hurt. Well, now Irwin Yin has to face Steve Kern in the election. That's an example of independent expenditures having a big impact and not taking on the negatives that they did in the bigger races.
Okay, just let's wrap up with what you think is the biggest surprise in this year's primary.
Well, I've mentioned a couple of them. The others, I'd say Steve Russell's surge into first rather than a strong second in the congressional race for the Republicans, the Democratic turnout being so low, and of course what everybody's saying I agree with in this case, Joey Hoffmeister's dramatic, powerful win in the Republican primary for superintendent. Those are my surprises.
You can read more about these and other topics at CapitolBeatOK.com. For Pat McGuigan, I'm Alex Cameron.